Hello, my name is Guy. I'm a communication and marketing expert, and today I'll be reviewing Madonna Woman of the Year speech at the Billboard Woman in Music 2016. I'm very excited. It's the first time on the channel that I'm reviewing something that is not political, and I'm curious to see how Madonna does.
We already had sex with a banana, so. First of all, I want to say thank you to Labyrinth. That was an amazing, amazing performance. Can I put this down? Sorry. Seriously? It's better this way. I always feel better with something hard between my legs.
Okay, this is definitely a departure from our more political speeches that we have been reviewing. Of course, I expect a certain shock factor from Madonna. I don't think she's going to disappoint us today. What I'm curious to see is if she's going to be able to bring that down at some point and actually talk about maybe her struggle as a woman in music. So I'm curious to see if she's going to be able to balance both the Madonna factor and the platform that she's being granted for this occasion.
Thank you for acknowledging my ability to continue my career for 34 years in the face of blatant misogyny, sexism, constant bullying, and relentless abuse. When I started, there was no internet, so people had to say it to my face. There were very few people I had to clap back at because life was simpler then. When I first moved to New York...
Okay, I think it's a rocky start so far. She's not going to like that screenshot. That's better. This is, to me, it's not structured very well so far, and I don't know where we're going. And we're already past a minute in her appearance on the stage because she kind of wasted a bit of time joking around, putting the trophy down and stuff. So we already have a feeling that, hey, let's pick it up. After all, Madonna is a very high achiever. She is the top selling woman in music of all time. Tours sell out and sell out and sell out back then and still to this day. So her experience could be valuable if it was framed in a way that was useful for the audience, and so far it hasn't been. So I hope that the speech kind of concentrates back onto maybe something more productive in terms of communications, but I like Madonna, so I haven't lost all hope yet.
Life was simpler then. When I first moved to New York, I was a teenager. It was 1979, and New York was a very scary place. In the first year, I was held up at gunpoint, raped on a rooftop with a knife digging into my throat, and I had my apartment broken into and robbed so many times, I just stopped locking the door. In the years to follow...
Okay, let's talk about that moment. I think it is impactful that she talks about that experience, and I think it's brave as well. I respect Madonna for talking about that. If we just talk about speech writing here, I don't know if that moment was earned in terms of the speech writing. This seems to me like an inflection point that should have been maybe built up to from a happier place or happier sentiment, so that it actually drives the understanding that this is a very, very bad moment that happened to her, and it happened to her because she was a woman. I would love to hear about that at some point of the speech, but to put it there, and it's so early on as well, where do we go from here? So in terms of speech writing, in terms of like marketing your ideas, I think it's a missed opportunity to make it a more powerful point. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's going to build up to from there and teach us a lesson. We'll see.
So many times, I just stopped locking the door. In the years to follow, I lost almost every friend I had to AIDS or drugs or gunshot. As you can imagine, all these unexpected events not only helped me become the daring woman that stands before you, but it also reminded me that I am vulnerable. And in life, there is no real safety except self-belief and an understanding that I am not the owner of my talents. I'm not the owner of anything. Everything I have is a gift from God.
So far, the speech is very introspective. And of course, I'm not a woman, so maybe my perception is different. If it is, please let me know in the comments below. But in terms of like building up a speech, I don't know where we're going yet. And at this point, I should know. It's not a very long speech. It's a 10-minute speech. There were things in the speech that were powerful, impactful, when she talks about her experience as a young girl in New York. I think that's very impactful. The problem with that is we're 2 minutes and a half in, and I still don't know what the theme of the speech is other than I'm Madonna. So it's hard to find meaning through her experience, through her trauma, because it is communicated in such a disorganized way. So there's a lot of like speech writing techniques that could have been used here. For example, you could have very well started the speech with that event where she goes, I was held at gunpoint, and then R-worded. It hits you. It starts like that. Okay, Madonna is opening up this speech with this. Where is she going to take us? And then she could have come back when she was a young girl, or and then build up from there. You know, there are different speech techniques that could have been used here to at least organize the ideas that we have heard so far in a way that would have been more relatable to the audience. That's my criticism at the moment.
And even the up things that happened to me, that still happen to me, are also gifts to teach me lessons and make me stronger. I'm receiving an award for being Woman of the Year, so I ask myself, what can I say about being a woman in the music business? What can I say about being a woman? When I first started writing songs, I didn't think in a gender-specific way. I didn't think about feminism. I just wanted to be an artist. I was, of course, inspired by Debbie Harry and Chrissie Hynde and Aretha Franklin, but my real muse...
Okay, so I like this. I like that she gives reverence to women that came before her. As a lot of young pop stars will often credit Madonna for paving the way for them. Madonna has been extremely successful and has been competing in a man's world for a long time and continues to do so. I would have liked for Madonna to maybe open up with that, or to start with, if today I received this award, it's because other people paved the way. I think it would have been relatable to other people. What I also realized watching, the reaction shots that they film in the crowd, women seem to be responding positively to this speech so far. So I'm curious to see if you relate at home. But I just feel like the structure of this speech is not. It doesn't work so far.
Chrissie Hynde and Aretha Franklin, but my real muse was David Bowie. He embodied male and female spirit, and that suited me just fine. He made me think there were no rules. But I was wrong. There are no rules if you're a boy. If you're a girl, you have to play the game. What is that game? You are allowed to be pretty and cute and sexy, but don't act too smart. Don't have an opinion. Don't have an opinion that is out of line with the status quo, at least. You are allowed to be objectified by men and dress like a slut, but don't own your sluttiness. And do not, I repeat, do not share your own sexual fantasies with the world.
Isn't it weird that the Woman of the Year award is given by Anderson Cooper, a man? And just like for optics, isn't it weird? I don't know. You let me know.
Be what men want you to be, but more importantly, be what women feel comfortable with you being around other men.
Okay, see, I don't understand the point she's making. I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this. And I'm not saying the sentiment's not okay. I'm not saying that what she's expressing is wrong. I totally support what she's saying, but the way it's framed and structured, I just don't know. I'm not exactly sure what point she's trying to make.
And finally, do not age, because to age is a sin. You will be criticized, you will be vilified, and you will definitely not be played on the radio.
Okay, listen. I'm very happy that Madonna talks about age and about the unfair treatment that women in the entertainment business receive when they're aging. I think that's very valuable, especially because Madonna is aging in front of the public. It's a testimony to her artistry. It's a testimony to her music. You can think of Cher, for example, that also has a very long-standing career. What I would like to hear from her is the pressure to stay young. Look, Madonna here is 58, I would say, in 2016, something like that. I won't look like that at 58. So the pressure to stay young when you're aging is evident by the way that she presents herself. Yet she doesn't talk about the pressure of the looks, the pressure of staying young. So that I think would have been very interesting and relatable because it's something that we can actually see. I would have loved to hear something about that. That pressure must be very, very strong.
When I first became famous, there were nude photos of me in Playboy and Penthouse magazine. Photos that were taken from art schools that I posed for back in the day to make money. They weren't very sexy. In fact, I looked quite bored. I was. But I was expected to feel ashamed when these photos came out, and I was not. And this puzzled people. Eventually, I was left alone.
See, tell me why you weren't ashamed. Tell me why people expected you to be ashamed and why you were not, because that would be empowering. Instead, she moves on. So there are good things in this speech that could have been reworked. You know, maybe a woman, a speechwriter that could come with her and sit with her and just reframe her ideas and work them, not to change them, not to change the nature of the speech, but just to frame it in a way that is a little more maybe concise, but also more structured. It doesn't seem like there is connecting pieces. It just seems like there are different portions of ideas that were put together. Good ideas, interesting experiences, but maybe not put together coherently.
Alone because I married Sean Penn, and not only would he bust a cap in your ass, but I was taken off the market. So for a while, I was not considered a threat. Years later, divorced and single. Sorry, Sean. I made my erotica album, and my sex book was released. I remember being the headline of every newspaper and magazine. And everything I read about myself was damning. I was called a whore and a witch. One headline compared me to Satan. I said, wait a minute. Isn't Prince running around with fishnets and high heels and lipstick with his butt hanging out? Yes, he was. that he was a man. This was the first time I truly understood that women really did not have the same freedom as men.
So that point would have been so interesting. Again, it's another great idea that is not framed the way that I think is most productive. Like, Madonna releasing her erotica album was a very big deal. There are some photos of her naked in that book, which to our standards today may not shock the audience as much, but back in the days it was really pushing the envelope. I would have loved to hear what it felt to her as a woman to essentially have her body being weaponized by the press like that. But I would also have loved to hear from her what her concerns were for other women. People vilified the content, the nudity, right? The idea that you would put on a cover that a woman was a slut is a lot more hurtful to society than the pictures themselves. Had she expanded her experiences to society in general, or made parallels with something greater than herself, I think it would have put her experience in context and it would have made a better speech. How does that impact her as a person, but how does those public shaming moments impact the rest of society? Those are all good ideas, but they're so introspective that they fail to generate a broader conversation and inspire, I think.
I remember feeling paralyzed. It took me a while to pull myself together and get on with my creative life, to get on with my life. I took comfort in the poetry of Maya Angelou and the writings of James Baldwin and in the music of Nina Simone. I remember wishing that I had a female peer that I could look to.
Give us an example of the poetry that made you feel better. I think that would have been impactful.
Camille Paglia, the famous feminist writer, said that I set women back by objectifying myself sexually. Oh, I thought, so if you're a feminist, you don't have sexuality. You deny it. So I said, it. I'm a different kind of feminist.
Okay, I think this part works because she is essentially contrasting as she would say, a different type of feminist to her own understanding or her own conception of feminism. So I think this part works. Let's see if she builds on it.
I'm a bad feminist.
Okay, all right. I think that works.
People say that I'm so controversial, but I think the most controversial thing I have ever done is to stick around.
Why? Why is that controversial? Why do people think it's controversial? Or why do you think it's controversial? It would have been a great opportunity to tie it back to when she spoke about aging. Maybe if she said something in aging there that led us hanging, and then when she talks about that, the most controversial thing I've done is sticking around because, and then she brings it back to that, that would have been a nice way to see some ideas coming back and forth within the speech.
To all the women here today is this. Women have been so oppressed for so long, they believe what men have to say about them. And they believe they have to back a man to get the job done. And there are some very good men worth backing, but not because they're men, because they're worthy. As women, we have to start appreciating our own worth and each other's worth. Seek out strong women.
I love this. This is the type of speech that I was expecting for an event like this. It's a bit more empowering. She is actually going outside of herself to talk to the audience, to women in the audience. You see that there's a reaction as well to her speaking that way. In the crowd, there are women that are also in the public eye. You saw Shania Twain, for example, in the audience. You can suspect that Shania Twain also feels the pressure of being a woman in the industry, aging in the industry, and so on. So I'm sure she can relate to what Madonna is saying. What I like now is that she's actually opening it up to not just the people in the audience, in the immediate audience, but it feels now that she's opening it up to people who might be watching at home. And this is the kind of speech that I was hoping for. So we'll see where Madonna goes with this, but I like where it's starting to go at this moment.
To befriend, to align yourself with, to learn from, to be inspired by, to collaborate with, to support, to be enlightened by. As I said before, it's not so much about receiving this award as it is having this opportunity to stand before you and really say thank you as a woman, as an artist, as a human.
I love this part. I think it is very sincere. I think this is more effective than the rest of the speech. To her credit, she built it up there. I like this. I like this a lot.
Not only to the people who have loved and supported me along the way, so many of you are sitting in front of me right now. You have no idea. You have no idea how much your support means. But to the doubters, the naysayers, to everyone who gave me hell and said I could not, that I would not, that I must not, your resistance made me stronger, made me push harder, made me the fighter that I am today, made me the woman that I am today. So thank you.
I think the speech ended very well. I think the last minute of this speech was the strongest, and I think it was the most impactful. I thought it was better structured too, and it made an impact on me, the last minute of the speech. This speech incited emotional response from people in the crowd. We saw a shot of Kesha. Kesha has gone through a lot of hardships in the industry, being a woman, and you could tell that she was also visibly emotional from hearing what Madonna had to say. And I thought the ending was good. I think this speech was valuable in the ideas that it brought forward. I thought it was brave for Madonna to talk about very personal experiences of hers that I personally did not know about. Now, with that being said, I think this speech, with all those great ideas, could have benefited from a workshop, a second round of editing, so that the ideas that are presented in the speech end up making a little more impact on its audience. Although visibly, the audience was touched by the speech. And so I'm curious to see what you guys think. Am I too hard on Madonna? Maybe I expect too much of her. I really love Madonna. She's one of my favorite. I've seen her live. I've seen the DNA tour. Confessions on the Dance Floor, one of my favorite albums of all time. I absolutely love her artistry. I just think this speech at times was a missed opportunity to present the same ideas in a more coherent way, in a more impactful way. And I only wish that the last minute of that speech reflected on the rest of the speech a little better. So let me know in the comments below if you liked the speech, what you thought of the speech. Do you think my criticism is fair or am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. And let me know also if there's other speeches you want me to review. We review on this channel political speeches, but we also review speeches like that one. If you want to subscribe to the channel, that would help a lot. You can give us a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.